Troy, we are good to go.
Okay, welcome everybody. Call the meeting to order for Parks and Rec Advisory Committee. Thursday, December 1st, 2022 regular meeting. And by way of introductions, I will call your name as you appear on my screen. If you can just give us a nice wave so everybody in TV land knows exactly who you are. So Steve Williams. Andy Crump.
Hello.
Ken Worcester, sorry.
It's okay. Yep.
Tim Leonard. Brent iPad.
Hi, TV land.
And we've got Emily
Hello.
and Tim
Hello.
West, I should say. Now I gotta say last names for sure.
That's me.
All right, and then I am Troy Bollinger. I am your chair, Prac. Minutes, everyone has received the minutes and had an opportunity to review them for our previous meeting, October 27, 2022. Do we have any questions, discussion, or a motion to approve? Ken, please.
I move that we approve the minutes of our November meeting.
This is Andy, second.
Okay, that's Ken with the motion to approve. Brent with the second. Do we have any discussion before we vote?
Andy with the second.
What was that?
It was Andy with the second.
Thank you. I was turning up my volume on my phone. I thought I saw you with your hand wave, so
I did.
apologize. Did
Just a
So we got
clarification.
Ken with the motion to approve, Andy with the second, and Steve with a question or comment.
Just a clarification. Ken, you said approval of November meeting. I believe it was it not in October 27th?
Yeah, it was. It was. I'm sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. Did I say November?
I said November.
Oh, you said November. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, it is October 27th.
Yes.
Because we did not have a meeting in November. For
Exactly.
those that maybe they're tuning in right now, that is, we did a meeting today instead of November or late December. So, Steve, you had something else?
No, I was just going to say, I didn't even attend the meeting, but I watched it online.
How did we look?
You looked great.
Good. That's what matters. Any other questions or discussions, comments?
I'm just curious, Steve, why did you watch it online but not attend?
I actually watched it online a few days later.
Oh, okay.
After
okay.
the
Thank
meeting.
you
I
for
could
the
not attend the
clarification.
meeting. Yeah. So I sat
Okay.
and watched the meeting that way.
Cool. Thank you, sir.
Kendall, you want to poll?
Sure. Steve Williams,
Yes.
Ken Worcester,
Yes.
Tim Lanehart,
Yes.
Brent Haverkamp,
Aye.
Andy Crump,
Aye.
Troy Bollinger,
Aye.
Emily Lisborg,
Higher.
Tim West,
Hi.
and Joey Knopf. Motion passes.
Do we have any public comment, Kendall?
We do not.
Okay. Then moving on to our Parks Master Plan update, Kendall.
We are missing right now our consultant. So let me do some additional follow-up. And let's go to the next thing on the agenda.
Okay, that's the West Good Neighbor Project update.
Denise, are you ready to introduce? Is Lily on the line?
She's connecting on audio right now, so
Okay.
let's give her a second. She was in the waiting room. Apparently my camera's not working. Hang on just a second.
Denise, are you in the office?
Oh, yeah, I am.
Are you the only one in that building right now?
I am the only one in the building right now. Me and 60,000 square feet.
Yeah, I think we have Lily online.
There you
Yeah,
go.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, so about a year ago, we contracted with Plan B, which is now Coming Group, and specifically for the West Good Neighbor agreement and program. In that we were inundated with projects, and at that point in time, a lot of our natural disasters at the same time. So needing a little extra help and being short-staffed made an immense difference in the success of this project. So we contracted with Coming Group, and Lillian Dewey is our project manager. John Waverly and I have been working with Lily for the past year to get these projects moving and completed. There's a few things left to be done, but I'll let Lily do the presentation. Just a few notes that we did make some edits to the presentation that you were provided in your agenda packet. So if you would like to, we would be happy to send those via email with those edits in them. So without further ado, I also want to let you know that Jerry Mulrooney is also on the line from Coming Group. Lily will be doing the presentation, and I will turn it over to Lily.
You're still on mute, Lily, if you're talking.
Sorry about that. It looks like my options for screen sharing have been disabled by the host. So if you're able to let me share the screen, I can put the presentation on.
And that would be through Kendall, if you can give her rights.
It is set to all participants. So see if it's working now.
Perfect. Can you see my screen?
Not yet. So while Lily's working through that, maybe I'll just tell you a little bit about the West Good Neighbor program. We get about 200,000 to 250,000. It just depends on the funding mechanism for each year. This is a 10-year program. This program, these funds are for positive improvements to our community. WES is the Water Environmental Services in Clackamas County. And we started this program July 1st of 2019. We have an 80% split of the funds with Gladstone. So 80% goes to us, 20% to Gladstone. And these project or approved purposes for funding are connecting communities of Oregon City, Gladstone through improved recreational opportunities such as pathways, parks, and trails, enhance fish and wildlife habitat in riparian areas, create opportunities for collaboration and leveraging resources between the two cities and or West relating to another approved purpose here under, which is part of our contract language here, and enhance public knowledge on wastewater treatment and surface water management and what they can do to protect water quality through education and special projects. So that's kind of the platform that we're working off of on this agreement. And with that, looks like Lily's ready.
So I'll be giving you an river access trail update. For the next 10 minutes or so, I'll be going through the project overview, talking through the schedule, financials, discussing a potential parallel parking addition for striping, showing you some photos, and then opening up the floor to any questions or discussions you guys want to bring up. So the project, it's located just off exit 10 off the 205 highway. The parking lot you can see is outlined in a red box on the northeast corner of the map, and the trail runs down through both West and the City of Oregon City property and ends just after the cove. The project begins with some hazardous pruning. An arborist was out to assess the damage from the 2021 ice storm and determine what trees were hazardous for public safety that needed to be removed in terms of pruning, and removal of invasive species was done. For the pedestrian path, we removed and replaced damaged panels, and the areas were regraded to meet ADA standards. In the parking lot, we eradicated and restriped the parking lot to accommodate wider parking stalls and added an ADA accessible parking spot, as well as updated the ramp to give them accessibility to the trail. The preliminary work began in December of 2021 and finished up in June of 2022. This included the arborist review, bid solicitation, permitting, and review. The actual construction itself began in August, and contract work finished up last month in November. In terms of financials, there was a total budget of $588,125. Of that, about $318,000 were budgeted towards the river access trail, $60,000 was budgeted towards the Clackamas master plan, and $25,000 was budgeted towards the park and recreation master plan. The project for the river access trail is coming in at a projected cost of $258,000. It's projected to come in about $60,000 under budget, and at this time, there's $49,000 that is allocated towards the Clackamas master plan. That does leave a total of about $281,000. That is a remaining balance to be allocated to future projects. One of the additional improvements we are considering is adding additional striping for parallel parking to the parking lot. The blue hash lines shows you the areas that it would be adding. It would yield 8 additional parking spaces, and this cost is included within the projected cost to complete. For this, the next step would be to go through planner review, approval and permitting, and then scheduling in dry weather. Here's a couple photos of the project beforehand. There was invasive species, trees that were hazardous. Some of them were damaged during the ice storm and rotting or dead. The parking stalls were very narrow and couldn't accommodate full-size pickup trucks. And the pedestrian sidewalk had areas where some of the panels were lifted up due to roots growing underneath, and others where panels were dropping down as the subbase was getting eroded away. Here's some photos of what it looks like now after the improvement's been done. The invasive species were removed, hazardous pruning was done so that any of the dead trees or hazardous limbs overhanging any of the pedestrian walkways or city maintained goat trails would not pose a safety hazard to anybody. The parking lot has an ADA accessible ramp and parking stall, and there's also an additional area for motorcycle parking as well. And that was the brief presentation. If you have any questions or want to bring anything up, now's the time.
I have a question.
Thank you. Yeah, Brent, please go ahead.
So with the 281,000 left over for future projects, what type of future projects does it cover?
I'll go ahead and take that. Those future projects we're getting ready to go into our biennium budget planning. And so they would need to be projected and scoped out for that. However, with the West Good Neighbor funds, those are specifically dedicated to a specific area, and that would be along the river frontage, kind of where Lily showed us where we start in the parking lot of the river access trail. That's along the river frontage through the cove frontage and out to Clackamas Park area, and then a little bit further down to John Storm and Sportcraft. So
Okay.
That area is all within the West Good Neighbor area. And then on the other side of the river, along that river frontage, would be the Gladstone side, and that would be up to Meldrum Bar. So
Okay.
we're dedicated those funds to that specific area.
Thank you. That's good to
You're
know.
welcome. Mhm.
Andy,
And-
please. Oh, sorry, did some,
I think Steve was before me.
Thank you.
I'm just going on my screen. It helps me keep order, so go ahead, Andy, please.
So I was curious more, you guys made some improvements to the parking that's over on the, I don't know what side that would be, closer to the east, closer to the 205 side. But it doesn't seem like very many people use that side. Maybe I always use the Cove side parking lot. I don't know what's the ratio of people using that parking lot versus the Cove side, big gravel parking lot that holds a lot of people.
I would say it just depends. It's seasonal, plus it's a little bit on the transient side, but I can tell you that while we were doing this project, it was completely full a lot of the time, if not the majority of the time that we were down there, that we were having to cone things off so that we could get equipment and construction vehicles in there.
Okay.
So it is heavily used. There are times where there are very few cars in there, but it's like a lull and then it's busy again. So even during poor weather, we were seeing that it was being used quite heavily, and we would be parking as staff or construction groups up on the top side, just off of Main Street there.
Is there plans to make improvements to the Cove side parking lot? That's
I would have to defer that question because I don't know that I think that is urban renewal property.
that's probably true. That's probably true. Okay, got it. So that other parking lot that I was talking about, that's actually Parks owned, whereas the other one is not. Is
Correct.
it? Ah, okay.
Correct.
Thanks.
Steve, please.
Thank you. Just a quick question, and normally I try to go look at all these sites before we talk about our meeting, but I did not have an opportunity to do that. But have you provided, or have we provided, or is there a thought to provide access to the Clackamas River, foot access to the Clackamas River from the trail down? I don't know that area that well, but is there an opportunity to do that, provide trail access down to the river to allow people to access the river and fish and do other things?
There is several goat trails down to the river from that main river access trail.
Okay, would we consider doing some improvements? I mean, would improvements be allowed to improve that access at that location?
If we get into the ordinary high water area, then we would have to do some permitting and it would be extensive. But there are opportunities if that is something we want to pursue. There are some areas that they had set panels down to a certain point, which I think is the ordinary high, and then it becomes dirt trails.
Yeah, Steve, there are several little goat trails as she mentioned down to the, so plenty places to go fish.
Well, I don't mind being a goat to get down there, but if there's an opportunity to do it without, and I understand the issues of permitting and all of those kinds of things, but if we could make it as accessible as we can without having to go, into if we can take it to the main high water line and improve the goat trail so that me as a maybe not as good footed as a goat can get down there.
And there are a few points in there that are pretty easily accessible, even though they are dirt trails. So it would just be a matter of assessing if there's a need for more of a stable trail system down to the waterway or not.
Sure.
Can I ask a follow-up question to Steve's question, Denise?
Yeah, please.
So I was going to chime in like Andy. There's a ton of goat trails and everything from the main pedestrian area, Steve. This is kind of like in my backyard, but I am kind of curious to Steve's point for development. What about ADA accessibility from the path down to the river?
So the ADA accessibility is along the mainstay path.
Correct. But I'm talking about going down to the river.
Right, we would have to probably look at that to see if we could even make grade for ADA compliancy, because they
Okay.
are downhill and
Mhm.
not always able to, it would have to meander. And again, we'd have to look at where the ordinary high water marks are in order for us to, how far can we extend down to that without permitting to that extent. But there's also setbacks from the river frontage that we would have to go through planning. So there are some hoops that we would have to go through, but it doesn't mean that we can't go through permitting and ask and review and see what options are available.
Thank you, Denise.
Welcome.
Steve, you still have your hand up. Did you have more, or did you finish?
No, I forgot to hit the button.
Okay, that's fine. Just want to make sure we get you all your time. Emily, please.
Yeah, thanks so much. I have a couple of questions. I guess the one item that I noticed on that itemized budget, there was $25,000 allocated to the Parks Master Plan. And it looks like, if I'm reading it right, none of that budget was used. I'm just wondering, like, what's going on with that, or if you could just speak to that item specifically.
Sure. As far as I know, Kendall is actually in charge of the Parks Master Plan project. And when we were setting this budget, there was a notation for allocation to that, although we have not used that funding out of the West Good Neighbor project. And I would have to defer to Kendall for the reason.
Kendall, do you want to respond to that now?
I'm sorry, Kendall, is Kendall?
Or is Kendall just going to make us wait?
I'm
Oh, I
sorry,
can-
I got disconnected. Can you hear me?
We can.
Yeah, okay. So what ended up happening with the Clackamas Park Master Plan, we presented our projects to Wes, and we asked about utilizing some of the funding for the cost for the Clackamas Park Master Plan. We did get that approved, and that will be coming out of the West Good Neighbor funds. We had already budgeted for that Clackamas Park Master Plan to come out of the general fund, but once we were able to get that approved, we were able to utilize the West Good Neighbor funds for that, and that was approved. And that's why you see it in the budget.
Oh, sorry, Kendall. I was actually referring to the Parks Master Plan, which I think it was like
We have not used any of the West funds for the Parks Master Plan. All that money had come out of the general fund.
Oh, okay. So I just want, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
And then has there, I don't know who this would be directed at, but has there been any exploration as to improving the water quality at the Cove? I know, like, last year and I think the previous year, there was some really bad algae blooms.
As a matter of fact, Emily, they're going through that process right now. They're working with Restore Cap.
Okay.
So Urban Development and James Graham, who is the economic development manager, is working on that project, and he would be the one to provide more information on the status of that project.
Okay, thank you. And then I guess the big question is, like, $281,000 under budget. That seems like just a tremendous amount, and that seems pretty awesome, I guess. How does that happen?
It's actually, we have 3 years of funding. And so we had scoped out the project to what we thought we were capable of processing and completing successfully within the biennium. So there are additional funds that roll over in this specific project, the West Good Neighbor Agreement. So it's a rollover fund. So we have a starting budget, and then what we scoped out, and then what we were completed. So slightly under budget for what we had scoped out, but we do have those additional funds for future projects.
And does any of that include, I guess, specific projects, like in addition to the ones that were proposed at this exact location, or is that for, like, projects kind of in a similar area, but is there maintenance costs that could be funded potentially by this at this current location?
There project scopes that are looking forward to along the West Good Neighbor Agreement area, which again is along that same from river access down through Sportcraft. So we do need to scope those and get those approved through WES. So we, as a state, we're all stakeholders in this agreement. And so we sit down and we talk to them, we get them approved, and then we can move forward with them. So we haven't done like a comprehensive scoping of these projects, since this is the first little bit of the the agreement. I keep wanting to say grant with this agreement. So accumulating enough funds to move forward with the projects and then having the time to enact these projects successfully. We had 2 years where we were doing COVID and natural disasters. And so we were a little bit waylaid in getting these started, but just having the project management firm come on, it allowed us to be able to facilitate another capital project. But as far as maintenance, general maintenance, that's not the intent of the agreement.
Okay, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Ken,
Yes, Denise, are there time constraints
Yes.
involved in the money?
Yes. So the very first year, the 250,000 needed to be completed by the end of this biennium. We have 2 years per year of agreement money. So every year we have 2 years to spend that particular year's funding.
Okay, so in some cases it might be, I mean, do you feel like you're up against that wall for the spending, or are we doing okay with time wise?
I think we're ahead of where we thought we would be. We will be needing to jump into another set of projects in order to meet the second year's funding's deadline. So, but we have basically 2 years worth of funding or not quite 2 years worth of funding that will need to get spent in the next year and then 2 years.
Okay.
But
And
we'll be
is,
getting another set of funding for each year in this biennium.
okay, is planning and permitting, it looks like those are acceptable expenditures, is that correct?
Yes, as part of the projects, they are acceptable.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. Denise, Lily, thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Kendall, are we ready for the
Yes.
Parks Master
Roy.
Plan?
Yes.
Okay.
So we have Jason Elizalde here today to provide an update on the Parks Master Plan. Jason, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kendall. Can everybody hear me okay?
You bet.
Awesome. So for those of you who have not met, my name is Jason Elizalde. I'm with Next Practice Partners, Pros Consulting. We are the Parks and Recreation consulting firm that is working on the Parks Master Plan for Oregon City. So we are a Parks and Recreation firm. We are based out of Indianapolis. So it's about 10:30 my time right now, well past my bedtime, but excited to be here with you all. My background, I've been in Parks and Recreation for about a decade. Been doing the consultant thing for about 2 years now. Before that, I actually lived in Oregon for 20 years. So really excited to be part of this project. I lived in Eugene area from 2003 until last year. So excited to be here with you today and talk about where we are on the Parks Master Plan. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so we'll get into it here. So basically what we're going to talk about today is what we found so far. So we're going to go through some current findings, which are going to be our demographics and trends for Oregon City. We're going to go through some survey results, both from the statistically valid survey and the online community survey that we ran. And then we'll walk you through our priority investment ratings, and then talk about what the next steps in this process are going to look like. So when we talk about a master plan process, we like to think of it in 3 stages, kind of the where are we today, What does the system currently look like? Where is it that we're going to go tomorrow? So what are our goals? Where is it that we see ourselves in 5-10 years? And then most importantly, that third step, combining them, how is it that we're going to get there? Providing a accessible action plan, something that is going to be usable and make this not just some plan that sits on a shelf for the next 5 years. So first thing here, we're going to talk about demographics and trends. So first thing we like to point out, TPL, Trust for Public Land, they will rate what percentage of your population lives within a 10-minute walk of a park, and Oregon City rates very high on this. 77% of the population in Oregon City currently lives within 10 minutes of a park. The national average is 55%. So we know from an accessibility standpoint that more than 3 out of 4 residents currently have access to a park within a 10-minute walk, which is great. Demographic overview. So we ran some demographic and trend information from ESRI, which is the Environmental Systems Research Institute. This map here just shows the boundaries that we utilized for this data that we'll show on the next 6 or 7 slides. First, population in Oregon City. We see population growth. So 2010 census, you were at about 33,000. 2020 census, that number rose to 37,597. Our 2022 estimates has it about 400 above that. So we've been growing at, from the 2010 to 2020, we were growing at about 1.3% a year, which is almost double the national average, which was 0.7% over that time. So we know our population is growing. I know that there is possibly some potential where we might be reaching a grow out phase where there's just not necessarily going to be a possibility for as much growth going forward, which we kind of see in the projections with it slowing a little bit, but this is currently where we sit. Race, ethnicity, we've seen some diversification over the last 12 years, 91% white only in 2010. That number is down to 82% in 2022, projected to be down to 75% by 2037. Our largest minority group is those who identify as being 2 or more races. In terms of Hispanic population, 7% in 2010, we're at 9% now, projected to be at 11% in 2037. Age segment, we're getting a little bit older. This is kind of true across the country. People are living longer. We're seeing that people tend to age in place more now as well. So they find a community they like and they want to retire there and grow old and take advantage of that place that they've known their whole lives. So that 55 plus population, which you see in the yellow and the light blue on the top of these charts, that number is getting higher across the country. So we were at 24% 55 plus in 2010. That number is all the way up to 31% now. It's expected to get as high as 37% in the next 15 years. So when we talk about these aging populations, what is it that we're providing in our parks and recreation systems that is allowing these, we like to call them active adults. We don't call them seniors. We don't call them seniors. They don't act like it. So what we're providing for these active adults out there, making sure that we're providing recreational activities that allow them to continue to enjoy their communities. Income. So Oregon City is both above the national and state averages, both on a per capita income and median household income. This has both positive and negative connotations to it. It's nice in theory that they're making more money on average than what you would see nationally. But as we know, the cost of living in Oregon is quite a bit higher than the national average as well. So that also has to be taken into account. Also, when people have more money, they tend to have higher expectations as well. So all of these things need to be taken into account when they're looking at it from an income perspective. We'll talk about trends. So these next couple of slides, this is also data that comes from ESRI. So we're going to see some numbers here, and it's based off of something called a market potential index, which is something ESRI is coming up with. So any number you see over 100 is above the national average. So 100 would be a national average, below 100, below national average, above 100, above national average. Now, these numbers are based off of what we would expect the population to participate in had they had access to it based on the demographic data. This isn't actually numbers of what people in Oregon City are currently doing. This is what they could be expected to do based on the people that live in the community and the demographic makeup of the community as a whole. So first one here for general sports, Oregon City, there's a propensity for above average usage in volleyball, playing golf. Football is right at the national average. And then the other sports are kind of right at that national average level, with soccer being a little bit below. In terms of fitness, we see swimming, weightlifting, walking for exercise, yoga, jogging, Pilates, almost all of them being at or above the national average, with aerobics and Zumba just being a little bit below. And then for outdoor activities, again, kind of what Oregon's known for, right? With the beautiful topography and all that natural beauty that's out there. We see a lot of the outdoor activities some of them being well above the national average. The only ones being below being road bicycling, saltwater fishing, and rock climbing. Again, these MPI numbers, these are based off of the population, the makeup of the population, and what you would expect the people that live there to do based off of just population makeup. It's not necessarily based off of what the people in Oregon City are currently doing. So I want to talk a little bit about the community engagement process. So for us, one big thing is we want to make sure that we're going to where people are and not just allowing them to come to us. So we were out there a few months back doing public input meetings, did some stakeholder meetings, some key leader interviews. And then that data from those conversations went into creating the statistically valid survey that was put through by ETC. We also have a project planning website, or cityparksandplay.org, which is where the public can go and get information on the parks master plan process at any time. We have also launched Happy Feet Oregon, which is an app that allows people to give real-time feedback to when they are in any Oregon City parks and amenities. Let us know how we are doing, what it is that they are seeing. And it also gives us an opportunity to fix any issues as they arise, as opposed to waiting for things to, in general, sometimes some little problems can become big problems via social media or other outlets. This allows people to post anonymously and for us to have the opportunity to fix problems before they become bigger. So the statistically valid survey will run us through a couple slides here, going over some of the data that we received from the statistically valid survey, a little bit about this. We had 401 responses. The goal was 400. What that gave us a level of confidence of 95% with a margin of error of 4.8%. Basically, that means if we ran this survey 100 times, 95 times out of that 100, we would have the same results within a 4.8% margin of error. So that's what makes this statistically valid. And that's what makes this the most defensible method of community input that we have. So the first question here that we're looking at is use of parks and recreation facilities. So right now, based off of our respondents, 87% of the community is currently has used a City of Oregon City Parks and Recreation facility during the past 12 months, which is awesome. The national average is 76%. So we know that our population is utilizing our parks at a higher level than the national average. In terms of physical condition, right now, 61% have it at good, 22% at excellent. So 83% of the population is saying that they like what they're seeing from our parks from the physical condition standpoint. Only 1%, so well below that, the margin of error, had it listed as poor. So we're definitely hearing from the community that they feel like they're receiving the physical condition of the parks and recreation facilities is strong in Oregon City. Percentage households that have participated in recreation programs over the last year, Oregon City right at the national average. So the first slide was how many have visited parks and facilities. This one is how many have participated in our programs. So about 1 in 3 of our community members have participated in an Oregon City program in the last year, which is right at the national average of 32% as well. The largest barriers to participation. So right now for Oregon City, I don't know what is offered is the largest barrier to participation. This is the largest barrier to participation everywhere. National average is 33%. It's the #1 largest barrier to participation. So Oregon City, a little bit above that. Too busy, not interested, 31%, a little bit above the national average, is the #2 as well. Not aware of parks, trails, and locations is #3 from the national. Programs not offered, program times not convenient are 4 and 5. And we see the program times not convenient being 3rd for Oregon City. Too busy, not interested does not post here. So that's an interesting one. Oh, sorry, it's up at the top. So anyway, as we're saying, the I don't know what is offered is generally going to be the biggest roadblock that we run into, and that comes down to marketing mix, how it is that we're promoting programs, what is our social media presence. In a lot of cases, we find that parks and recreation agencies aren't necessarily on the forefront of marketing endeavors and finding ways to promote their programs. So we see that coming through where 1 in 3 people nationally say that they don't know what is offered is the reason they're not participating. Oregon City, that number is closer to 2 out of 5. The way households learn about activities and events. So in Oregon City, it is the Park and Recreation Guide by a wide margin. 71% of our participants find out about their programs through the guide. The national average on that is 40%. City website was 2nd at 44%. Social media, 44%. All of these numbers are above the national average. The one that Oregon City was below on, kind of interestingly, is Friends and Neighbors, which is the #1 way people hear about parks and recreation agencies nationally. Oregon City was at 26% compared to 45% nationally. There is a positive and negative connotation to that as well. There's an argument to be made that if friends and neighbors are spreading the word of your system, that means they're having really good experiences and they want to tell people about this wonderful time that they're having. However, anytime that you are putting your message in the hands of other people, you are then no longer in control of your message. So there's definitely a downside to having friends and neighbors be your top way people are communicating. So I think it's good to see that we are doing so much above the national average in some of these other entities. However, still keeping in mind that we know that I don't know what is offered is the #1 barrier to participation. How is it that we're better utilizing some of these metrics to be able to better market our programs, facilities, and parks? These next couple slides are talk about perception of value. So given the recent COVID-19 pandemic, we ask, how has your household's perception of value, trails, open spaces, and recreation changed? Really great stuff here. We see that only 4% of the population feels that their perception has decreased at any level since the pandemic, with almost 60% having their perception of value increase. So one thing that the pandemic has done, especially in regards to parks, recreation, and open space, is it has definitely enhanced public perception is how important these spaces are. When the world shut down and people weren't able to do things, the one place that they were able to go in a lot of cases was parks. And they have a new appreciation for being able to spend that time outside with their families and loved ones. And we learned that as things got taken away, what was truly important. And what we're seeing is what was truly important is our parks, recreation, and open spaces. So it is a really good time to be having these conversations because right now, public support for these endeavors as they tie to the work that we do is as positive as it's been in years. So and then to follow that up, based on the answer to the last question we asked, how would you want Oregon City to fund the future parks, recreation, trails, and open space? 51% right now said that they would want to increase funding. 36% would want to maintain, and you've got those lovely 11% of people that are not sure. But more importantly, only 2% are saying that they would want to reduce funding. So we know that based off of the survey results, at least, that the public by and large is not wanting to take money away from Oregon City, which from Parks and Recreation, which is very important. And there may be some possibilities in the future of looking at increased funding if we were able to put together plans as to what that increased funding would look like. And that follows the next question is how willing would they be to pay additional taxes or fees to acquire, develop, maintain the types of parks, recreation, and trail facilities that are most important to their households? And right now, we see about 46% are showing as being either willing or very willing. Only 17% though are coming back saying that they are not willing at all, which means we have about 30%, 27% being neutral. So when we start talking about additional funding, what the number that we've seen for the statistically valid survey process, where you would actually start looking at whether it's bond measures or tax levies or whatever, some sort of ballot measure to be able to increase funding. The number that we want to see on the willing is closer to 66%, about 2/3 would be the number that you'd be looking at, where you start really having serious conversations about that being something you would want to do. So we're not quite there yet. But the fact that we only have 9% of or 26%, 17% not willing at all, and 9% not willing at being at that point kind of shows that there is some potential here that we may be able to start looking at some increased funding for Oregon City Parks and Recreation from the public. The online survey was run simultaneously with the statistically valid survey. It was basically run through SurveyMonkey, and it allowed people who were not selected for the statistically valid survey process to participate. It basically does not have any sort of scientific measures to it. It's an open survey that anybody could take. So it tends to be more apt to be overtaken by special interest groups. But it does allow everyone to be part of the process and provide some further insight into community expectations. So a couple of things here just to kind of show the differences between the surveys. So we have 401 responses to statistically valid survey. We have 184 for the online survey. No precision rate or level of confidence due to there being no selection criteria for the online survey. It did ask the exact same questions. The surveys are identical in every way. It was presented in English and Spanish as well. So this first slide here will kind of give you an idea as to how some of the statistically valid aspects of it can be skewed. So the statistically valid survey in terms of responses is going to be in line with the demographic data of the community. So we had 50% of the public male, 50% female. For the online community survey, we had 23% male, 76% female. So just on this slide, you can kind of see how the online survey won't necessarily be in line with the community as a whole. It's generally going to be taken, we generally have more female respondents. Our respondents tend to be younger for the online community survey, and they tend to be more affluent on the online community survey. So just some things to keep in mind for those numbers. But even with all that said, we see some similarities. So we asked a question on both surveys: with a $100 budget, how would you allocate park recreation funds? And number one, by a pretty large margin on both surveys, is they would like to see us improve, maintain existing parks and recreation facilities. That has been a common theme throughout this process. What we have heard from the public is an interest in improving, maintaining what we have, as opposed to going out and building newer or building new facilities or amenities. There seems to be more interest in the maintenance of what currently exists. So that takes us to the priority investment ratings. So priority investment ratings, when we ask these survey questions, it's kind of broken into two parts. So is there a need for a program, facility, or amenity? And if so, how well is that need being met? And then how important is the facility, need, or amenity? So is it important? Yes or no? Is there a need for it? And if so, what percentage of that need is being met? This all goes jumbled into a formula, and this formula spits out a number called a priority investment rating, which tells us what level of importance should be pursued onto certain there's going to be two different sections. We're going to be looking at programs, and we're going to be looking at facilities and amenities. So the first one here is facilities and amenities. So what we see based off of the survey results, the number one priority for investment facility amenity is trails. Number two is also trails. So we have number one is paved trails. Number two is unpaved trails. So we know that this is something that the community is looking for. Other high priorities, water access, which I know has been a continuous topic out there. Outdoor amphitheater ranked pretty high, indoor walking, jogging track, large community parks, open space, conservation areas, fenced dog park, small neighborhood parks. And again, this isn't to say that you need to go out and build all of these things right now. This is basically just showing, as we look at as the community was asked, what are the things that they would be looking for? These were the things that came out as the highest priority based off of their survey responses. From a programming standpoint, the 4 programs that showed up as a high priority, number 1 was a farmer's market, which I think caught some people by surprise. Number 2, adult fitness and wellness programs, which is generally the number 1 high priority program nationwide at this point. Community special events 3, and then cultural enrichment programs and events being the 4th high priority. So our next steps, so we're finishing up some technical reports. We have accumulated a lot of data at this point. So we have the survey. We are working on a recreation program assessment, working on a benchmark with other agencies throughout the state of Oregon. We're working on level of service equity mapping. So we're going to have a lot of reports coming forward in the upcoming, probably in the next month or so. When we are in town in January, we will be prepared to present further findings. So we'll be prepared to present findings on that program assessment, on the benchmark, on the equity mapping, as we do our staff visioning on the 18th, and we will be doing a public input findings presentation on the 17th. Once those are all done, we'll start working on our action and implementation plans. We'll draft a report. Those reports will be come to you for review, as well as the commission. And then once all of that feedback is received, we will finalize the report, and you guys will have a Parks Master Plan. And Brent has his hand up before I was even at the question. So let's fire away.
So I have 2 questions. Can you go back to your barrier slide? Perfect. So the question I have with this is, I wish Doug Neely was on this call. And I'm not a stats guy or anything, but the barriers that I'm looking at this with, like the 38%, the 31%, the 17%, this totals over 100%. So can you help me to understand this?
Yeah, sorry. So I did not explain that well. So they are asked to pick their 3 largest barriers to participation. So
Okay.
This is the percentage of people who selected that as one of the 3.
So can you say that one more time? I apologize.
So basically, they are asked to select their 3 largest barriers to participation.
So this is kind of like a
38
weighted.
It's not even weighted. It's just 38% of people said that I don't know what is offered was one of their 3 largest barriers to participation.
Okay.
So the number is going to be over 100 because people can select more than one thing.
Yeah, so I don't know how accurate of a representation of is this data then in this slide?
Well, again, it's all compared to a national average, right? So everyone's asked the same question the same way across the country. So from a national average, 33% nationally will rate this as one of the 3 highest barriers to participation. In Oregon City, that number was 38%.
All right. Thank you. The second question I have is that when you're talking about one of your last slides, you're talking about the priorities, high, medium, and low. Thank you. Perfect. And number 3 from the top is water access. I guess my question is we live in Oregon City, we're at the confluence of 2 rivers. We have Willamette Falls. We have a sports park, boat ramp. We have a lot of water access. Can we specify about what type of water access people want?
You definitely. It would definitely be an interesting follow-up question to ask, because I mean, basically what we have is we asked them about water access and they said it was important and they said their need wasn't being met. Now, again, this could also be a part of awareness can play a part in this. There may be a part of it where that not knowing what is offered, barrier to participation aspect comes into play. They don't know where their water access is, so they think their need isn't necessarily met. But yeah, that would definitely be something that could be looked into if with a follow-up type of questionnaire or survey to try to figure out what it is that the community means by needing additional water access. Because at this point, yes, it's very vague.
Right. I mean, that even ties into Steve's question earlier about like the pathway. Can we get water access down to the Clackamas River? And that's just like, we need to be very specific when we say water access because it's all around us. So
agreed. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you. I don't know who is next. I got 2 Tims. Which Tim wants to go?
I'll go since Tim was too late to go ahead and unmute. Okay, so Jason, thank you for your national perspective on things. I think it's really cool to compare what you see nationally to what our interests are in Oregon City. I find it very concerning that most people, the biggest barrier for people to do something in our parks is that they don't know what's going on. I think that the couch is calling or the TV is calling more than their desire to exercise or get outside. And I think it's really unconscionable, but that's my opinion. Anyway, there's since you have this national perspective, what do you see as a golden standard for marketing what Oregon City Parks has to those people that do not do anything in our parks?
So from a marketing standpoint, just from a real basic benchmark, the one number that we see results on is in terms of budget, and 3% of your Parks and Recreation budget towards marketing as a minimum number. And in a lot of cases, most Parks and Recreation agencies don't necessarily have any money that's put aside towards a marketing budget. But that is one kind of benchmark number that we've been utilizing to look at. Really, the agencies that do this well, it's the creative kind of grassroots marketing methods. It's the groups that are able to kind of get ahead of trends on social media. We've definitely seen some of the more front-running groups starting to get in on TikTok, and that having a lot of results with kind of reaching that teen demographic that's been really hard to get to. We've seen some results with that on some of the trend aspect of it. We're seeing agencies getting into certain aspects of like AI and VR type stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things out there, but ultimately, to your point, initially, how much of it is the populace just not wanting to get out? Like they're saying that they don't know what it's aware, but they're not really looking for it. So we have to be very intentional with how it is that we're getting the word out and trying to make sure that we're giving, if people don't know what we're doing, it's on them, it's not on us. So a good starting point there is, what is your marketing budget for Parks and Recreation?
Thank you.
Yes. Tim, number 2.
I'll take anything, Jason. I had 2 quick questions. The first
sir.
one was right at the beginning of the presentation, you talked about a Happy Feet app, which I believe collected data from the parks. I just want to see, how much feedback have you gotten back from that app, and how is it being broadcast to the public?
Yeah, so right now we're still in a I don't think it's launched publicly yet. We're still finalizing it. So once it is done, there's a million different ways that it could be promoted. We'll do promotions out at the park. We can do QR codes, but that data will then go both to Kendall and to us, and then could be distributed to whichever staff needs to have access to it for problem solving situations. But generally the whole point of it is to this kind of stuff, like input's a contact sport. The more possibilities we give people to let us know how we're doing, the more opportunities we have to hear. And if you're asking for feedback in a continuous loop, as opposed to just allowing people to give you feedback when they're ready to give it to you, generally you do it that way, you're only going to hear about the bad things. If we make it more of a proactive aspect, we tend to hear more of the good stuff as well. So that's another part of it.
Great, thank you. And my second question that I have is, a lot of the metrics that you had reviewed showed Oregon City 2022 through the national average comparison. For the national average comparison, what's the time frame of numbers that's being compared against? Is it
same time frame? Yeah. So we're asking for the survey the survey comparisons.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. So those are it's all from the same time frame. It's the last. Well, I guess it's not necessarily going to be to the exact date, right? Because the Oregon City survey was taken when it was taken. So it's through the last full year. So I think through the 2021 complete year would be what those national averages are.
Perfect. That's all I was wondering. I assume a survey now post-COVID is going to be a lot different than a survey 5 years ago.
Yes, these are all post-COVID numbers.
Thank you, Jason.
Yes, of course. Emily?
Yeah, I'm just I'm trying to understand that the priority investment rating. Can you describe like a little bit more about what goes into that equation?
Sure. So it's 3 parts. So the first thing is going to be one, is this important? So you either answer yes or no. If it is deemed important, the next question becomes, do you have a need for this? And then that it becomes, if you do, what percentage of your need is currently being met? And then that is rated off of 100% of your needs are met, 75% of your needs are met, 50% of your needs, 25%, 0%. ETC, the group that does the surveys, they state anything that someone lists as being met by 50% or less as an unmet need. So basically the combination of those 3 things creates the priority investment rating. So the items that are going to be the highest on here are going to be the items that are important, that there is a need for, and that there is a high percentage of that need not currently met. Does that make sense?
I guess I'm just trying to understand what the difference is, or how the difference is being assessed for if something's important or whether there's a need for it. I guess in my mind, those are kind of similar questions, at least as they would result in like a survey question.
Sure. And again, I mean, this is how the questions are asked. So it's each individual is going to have, it's going to be based off of their interpretation as to what those words mean.
Okay.
how ETC would describe it. Something of a need, I might need water. So on a day-to-day basis, I need water. But if I have water next to me, it's not necessarily important at that time. But again, your point is valid. The interpretation as to how you perceive those two things is definitely going to play a role, but that's going to play a role in how anybody takes any survey anywhere.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you to everybody. Any other questions? I'm going to apply one thing that I learned from this presentation and ask if we have any questions from our two active adults of the group, Steve and Ken. Did I ask that right, Jason?
Yes, active adults.
Active adults. I just think we
Active
need more
adults.
fishing all the way around. More fishing.
Just more fishing.
Water
fishing,
access.
that's all we need.
Got it.
Well, good. The other, and my screen just froze up. Hopefully you can still hear me because my video is all messed up. But
We can hear you.
okay, good. So the other thing I took out of this though is that for the marketing piece, we can look forward to TikTok videos from Kendall. Is that right?
We have no money for marketing in our budget. First, you got to get us some money.
We're gonna be there. We're gonna be there in about a month. I'll get Kendall and I will do a TikTok dance for you. It'll be
Well,
gonna
and
be
the,
great.
and the good thing about that is it's free, right? So Kendall, we don't need a budget. We just TikTok videos.
That's right.
So we're reaching a younger audience.
I love it.
And Kendall, I heard
No,
you
we're
had
good.
money in the West Good Neighbor Project too, so you got money.
That's true. That's true. We're good to go there. All right. Jason, thank you very much. Appreciate
Of course,
it.
thank you all.
Okay, so. Oh, hang on a second here. Lost my little information. There we go. Okay. So moving on, we've got our discussion on our PrAC member appointment recommendations. So just to kind of set the groundwork on this, so we understand where we're at, is we have interviewed 3 applicants this evening, and they're all eligible to be appointed or to be recommended, excuse me, because of where they live. They all fit the criteria, so we're fine there. So we can first want to open this up for discussion and get everyone's thoughts on the different applicants, where they think strengths, limitations, where we think we should go. And then at the end of the discussion, as we close it out, we have options. We can recommend, and again, we're just recommending to the mayor of what we think is a good fit for PrAC, and then she gets to make the decision for appointment. So we can recommend all 3 of them. We can recommend none of them, or we can recommend 1 or 2 of them. So it's not an all or nothing. We can have the discussion and see where that takes us. So who wants to kick off the discussion? Go ahead, because I can't see anybody because my video's messed up, so I can only speak. But go ahead and kick off the discussion.
Tim West has his hand up.
All right,
right.
go for it, Tim. I can't see that. Please do.
Why, thank you. I recommend that all 3 of the people that interviewed tonight be accepted to the PrAC. I think all of them showed interest, showed concern about PrAC, and wanted to take it in a good direction. And since there are 3 openings, I recommend that all 3 be accepted and submitted to our mayor.
Okay. And it's certainly okay for you to make that recommendation. Before we finalize anything, though, is there any discussion, any questions amongst ourselves, any thoughts without any final decision yet?
Steve Williams has his hand up.
Thank you. Well, I at the end of the day, we'll concur with the recommendation we heard just a few minutes ago. But I thought it was interesting. Of course, Tim we can't talk about him too much because he's here to listen to us, I guess. So but I think it goes without saying, it's certainly very acceptable and brings to table an interesting set of criteria or an interesting set of tools, if you will. I thought that was what I got out of this group. Got a pretty broad group of, Joyce was really neighborhood oriented, very connected to her neighborhood, and certainly had been involved in PrAC before, but she brought that aspect to the table. And Seth, originally, I'll be honest with you, I read his application and I thought Seth maybe was getting ready to apply for the Planning Commission rather than PrAC, based on what I read there. But as I listened to his answers and how he tied them together with his experience, he brings to the table a different kind of background that I don't know if many of us have there, that could provide an interesting set of viewpoints, if you will, for one of the kind of things we tend to address. So I think they each are capable and certainly are very interested and have different tools between them that would make us a better committee and be helpful to the city.
Thank you. Hey, Kendall, I'm in the waiting room. I'm trying to get back into Zoom.
All right.
Let me in, that'd be great.
Brent was next.
Go for it, Brent.
Hey guys, I'd say all of them except for that Tim Leinhardt guy, man. That guy's the worst. No, but on a serious note, what I really liked about all three candidates, and Tim, especially with you, I really appreciate your enthusiasm. And I also really appreciate your experience working with other parks and recreation systems throughout the state.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a very unique knowledge set that brings a lot of value. With Joyce, I agree with Steve. She's very community oriented, very neighborhood oriented. I think she'd be a great asset. And with Seth, I loved how he calls it PRAC instead of PrAC. I love that. He's an advocate for the community, and I love that he has done his due diligence. He's reviewed the master plan. He looks for quantifiable metrics. He named Park Place flat out. And, as a neighbor or as a citizen of Park Place, this is one of the fastest growing development areas, and we only have a tiny little 3-acre park. So I felt that he was really, I agree with Steve, I felt like he was running for the Planning Commission there. I did, but he has a commitment to the community, and it came out in his interview. So I think all three are shining stars.
Thank you. Thank you. Emily.
Yeah, I concur with what everyone has said. I think that it was kind of cool to see like three very different applicants. Tim, I think you bring a lot of really, really excellent knowledge and experience working with parks and community organizations, which is really important. I thought Seth has like a experience that perhaps we don't really have well represented currently. And I just to branch off that, I don't know you all very well. If at any point we could just sit down and do brief introductions and kind of have like a question just openly, like, what is your experience? Because I know Steve and but that's pretty much it. So yeah, it'd be cool to kind of, get to know you all better in terms of your experience. And then Joyce, very community oriented. I think it's relevant that she's a substitute teacher, perhaps has a little bit more knowledge about, what young people are looking for in our parks. I think that, a lot of these surveys aren't being taken by people that, by 18 and under demographics. And so I think having somebody who is a little bit more immersed in very young people needs would be great. And not just as parents, but as an educator. So yeah, I support the recommendation for all three of them to become members of PrAC.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your comments. Ken.
Well, yeah, I was a little bit confused. Now, did David withdraw his application, or he was just something came up and he wasn't able to participate tonight?
Something came up and he wasn't able to participate tonight. Okay. Well, now we are looking for one
one or two people that live outside the city? At
We're
this
looking for
point?
a total of 2.
Total of
Joey
two,
is already the one,
right?
and so we can only accept one other. And there were 2 choices until we had the one withdrawal. So now we don't have any conflict or anything to worry about if we choose to recommend all 3. It's totally okay at this point.
Okay, gotcha. I guess personally, I'd be interested in listening to David if we have an opportunity to interview him later. I hate to, if something came up, I hate to just kick him to the curb right off the bat. I think that there's a kind of a unique perspective from being a camp or a park host that we haven't heard. So I would be interested in that.
Well,
I agree with
we do
Ken.
we do have time because these appointments typically, and I say typically because with some vacancies we've done
Right.
kind of mid-year, as we just did a few weeks ago. So typically we start January 1. So again, I'm not making a motion or making a suggestion, but just so everyone's aware, we could recommend 2 and wait on the 3rd until we hear from David and then make a recommendation based on those 2. Or we could make a recommendation for all 3 with some of our own thoughts and comments and see what the mayor wants to do and if she wants to proceed or not. So because we're making a recommendation, we have a lot of leeway and latitude on how we can deliver that and just give her the information.
Right.
Or hold back on the information if we choose. We can do that. Anything else, Ken?
No.
So Tim Lanehart, you have your hand up. You have something to say about Tim?
Yeah, I mean, I wanted to echo what everyone said, that he's an amazing candidate and that we're all just, so happy that he applied twice in, 2 months. I'm well versed in that. Happy to do this every other meeting if I need to, just to my spot here.
We're going to come up with some new questions, though.
I know. Feel like that was cheating on the interview, but my more serious question is the terms that we are voting for. I know last time, one was a 1-year term, one was just the 2 months, just to kind of fill in these last few meetings that I took. What are the terms for this, Troy? And, I know I didn't hear the other people's interviews, just my own. Do I have a voice to vote?
Kendall, I can take a stab at that, but you're going to have all the information more accurate than I will. So I'll let you answer that.
Yes. So we currently will have 3 vacancies. And those 3 vacancies would be Brent's position, Andy's position, and the position you're currently in right now, because it ends at the end of December. So whoever we put in those 3 areas will get a full term moving forward. The other vacancy that we currently will have is due to the resignation of Troy. And his term ends next year, I believe. And so you all could decide if you want to make a recommendation as to kind of where you put people, but that's currently what we're working with.
Thank you.
So Tim, you did interview better this time than you did the first time, by the way.
This makes perfect. I wasn't nervous this time.
Brent, you have your hand up. Did you have more?
Yeah, I just wanted to emphasize on Ken's point. I think that it is important that we interview David Montoya. I think that I agree with Ken. I think that he does bring a unique perspective as a park host. He probably sees things that we aren't aware of. You addressed the open seats. I know that my term's coming up for the 3-year mark coming in January, I believe. So you addressed that, but I think that all I had my hand up was to agree with Ken's motion about we still need to interview David Montoya. One other point, I feel that and this kind of goes back to what Emily was talking about. She barely knows any of us. We've gone through a pandemic. I heard tonight that COVID is over. I don't know if I agree with that, but there was a lot of value when we used to meet in City Hall all together in one room. And I think that there's something lost in video meetings that you don't get in person-to-person meetings. And I would like to propose that this organization starts to meet in person again. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Any other comments about the applicants? Okay, I have a couple thoughts. I agree, and just for clarification, Brent, I know what you meant, but because we're on record, Ken did not make a motion, but rather a suggestion.
Correct.
So there's no vote. Now, it can be a motion. I just want to clarify that we're not passing up on a vote here.
Right.
I think Seth is a good candidate. I have some concerns with his disconnect from Oregon City. That Joey lives outside the city, but he's still within our community. And that's kind of the initial thought of living outside the city limits, was it allows us to bring in some Redlands, some Beaver Creek, potentially some people from what we call the island, the school district piece over in Milwaukee, where they still go to our schools and participate, but they actually live in Milwaukee. Not that it has to be that, but my concern is the disconnect from our community. I think he's a solid candidate. He's very intelligent. He's got a lot of experience. And for that reason, I would suggest that we recommend to Tim and Joyce, and that we do not recommend Seth, and then hear what David has to say for his application or his interview, and then we make a recommendation based on those two. That's my thoughts. Emily, you put your hand back up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I guess want to piggyback on that. I think we need to give David the opportunity, if he has time before that deadline, certainly, to have an interview. As much as I like Seth, it seems only fair to give both applicants the chance to interview.
Okay, thank you. Tim West?
I also think that interviewing David would be appropriate. But I also think that you cannot discount Seth as easy as that. I think that he offers a tremendous value to PRAC or pre-BRAC, but I think that it's something that he is committed to Oregon City. He's going to do some big things here, and he has, as a developer, he's going to work hard to make Oregon City what he wants it to be. And PRAC is a tremendous avenue for a developer to go ahead and show what he's worth and where his heart is. So I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Brent, is your hand up again or just didn't take it down?
It's up again. I'll
Okay,
take it down right now, but I want to say I actually disagree with your comments, Troy, quite frankly. I think that Seth would be a great asset to Oregon City, even though he's not from the island or from like Beaver Creek, or in that he resides in Southwest Portland. He's clearly done his due diligence. He's taken part in our community activities. He clearly has a passion for the city. I think that all of those make him a viable candidate for a PRAC membership or a PRAC position.
Perfect. Thank you. I appreciate that. Any other thoughts? So Kendall, do we need a motion and a vote, or we just need a consensus and an agreement?
I think we just need a consensus and agreement.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought, but I want to make sure we weren't bucking the protocol here. So I'm going to restate what I think the consensus is, and then we're going to leave it open for any corrections to my statement. I think that through all the comments, what we've come up with is to recommend Tim and Joyce for a 3-year term and not recommend Seth, but then hear David and then decide on a recommendation for that position. Are we in agreement on that, or am I missing a piece?
Let's define that position. When you say that position, you mean the position for out of city? Or
Thank you, yes.
Because David lives within city.
Well, Well,
I don't think he technically does he, Ken?
Okay,
Yeah, he not technically.
Okay.
He listed the RV park as his address.
but that doesn't fall within city residents?
Well, the problem you run into is when he's no longer a park host. How are you? You see?
I copy.
Yeah.
Okay, I totally see.
Yeah.
So, yeah, then I hear what you're saying, Troy. And when you say that position, we're talking about the position for the out-of-city position on the PrAC board.
Yes, that's what I'm talking
Okay.
about, correct. Yep.
Thank you.
I had a question about, oh, I'm sorry. I see Steve's hands is up.
well,
That's okay, Emily, go ahead, you started.
Go ahead, Emily.
I guess I'm just wondering, like, does he have an alternate mailing address, or, I mean, the park is his current address, right? I mean, he doesn't have like a
Well,
second
it's his current address because the position, the employment position is a live-in position. At the same time, it's not a permanent address because it's an RV park.
I guess my thinking is that anybody can move at any time, and there's nothing specific about an RV park that necessitates like, like I could move tomorrow. I'm not going to, but the fact that I have a house only slows me down by like a month. You know what I mean? I don't know, because then we could have all 4 people. Then there wouldn't be an issue with residents.
So Kendall, is this an opinion or is this technical? Like, is this the rule?
In regards to him being a non-city resident, that it was vetted through the city recorder, and
Okay.
we had conversations about the fact that he was a park host and used the RV park, and so we decided that the best way to accommodate the request is to have him listed as a non-city resident, because I mean, park hosts come and go quite frequently, so who knows if he'll be here tomorrow.
So to Emily's question, that it's vetted with the city recorder, I think is the final determination,
Right.
and there's no more discussion on that.
Okay, thank you.
Emily, are you good with that?
Oh yeah, I just wasn't sure like how long park hosts usually stay. So if it was like, something that had more of like a longer, not months but years attached to it, then I guess it would be a non-issue. But if that's not the case.
No, unfortunately, that is not the case.
Okay, thank you.
There won't be a park down there in a while when the water comes up in a river, so
That is very true.
won't be a place for it. But Troy, I have a question. I'm
Yes.
prepared to. I think we potentially could be missing an opportunity here, but I'm prepared to support your description of the recommendation of 2 individuals, Joyce and Tim. The one thing I want to be sure of is I'm not sure who has the conversation with Seth, and we need to be darn sure that when we have that conversation, it isn't any reflection on him or his qualifications or otherwise. It's because we had shall we say, a unique situation arise where a candidate was unable to come to our interview. And since it's for the external position and both were in that situation, we wanted to be able to hear both of them. I don't want to lose Seth as him get frustrated or and misinterpret why we didn't make a suggestion tonight.
Time out, Steve.
Yeah.
I have a problem with the way that you're phrasing your question, because the way
Okay.
you phrase it makes it sound like we've discounted Seth already, and I don't think we have.
Well, no, I don't want. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't want that to be the message we send, that we've discounted him already. Whoever's going to make this conversation needs to be careful of their words. Obviously, I can't even say it right because I know I'm agreeing with you. But my point is, we don't want to lose him to be able to consider him in the future, because we got to wait. We got to wait for another interview. That's all we're doing is waiting. I just don't want him to lose. I don't want him to lose interest while we're waiting to be able to talk to Mr. Montoya, because that's going to take us a while. You're not going to get us together next week. So.
Right, and the pieces to that is, number one, Kendall gets to have that conversation. He's the one. But the other thing is, it's, and I know what you're saying, Steve, but to clarify, we're not, there's no, how do I say this? We're just postponing our decision until we meet with David. We're not denying him and then asking him to reconsider. We're simply saying, hang on, everything you've told us is valid and appreciated. We just haven't made a decision yet.
Yes, and that's all I want to be sure of, is that's how it's couched to him, so he
Yes.
doesn't interpret it
Yes.
Inappropriately.
Yes, and we're not opening up for other applicants to slip in there and be considered. It's just to hear David.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Steve. Tim West.
So Kendall, how many park hosts at the Clackamas Trailer Park have we had in the last 3 years?
That's a John question. He would have to answer that. We've had quite a hard time attracting park hosts and keeping park hosts in that particular area because of the level of activity with the homelessness and transient population. So John has done some heavy recruiting to try to get people at that location, and we tend to not keep people very long.
And how long has David been there?
John, do you have any idea of how long David's been there?
I believe since around July.
He sounds like a flight risk, is what I'm saying.
Well, I mean, aren't we all? Aren't we all to some extent, right? I mean, we take it for what it is, but you know, it sounds like he's doing the job he's been asked to do. So I think he's good. But you know, in case he does move on, Steve, there's fishing down there. So, you know.
Thank you.
All right. So we have an understanding. As Kendall, is that good enough for you? What you need for us to draft a letter of recommendation for the mayor now with the two candidates and then communicate to Seth?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, everybody. I love engaged discussions. It's very helpful. Kendall, staff reports.
All right. Big announcement. We had our public engagement meeting scheduled for Monday at 6 p.m. at Robert Lipke, the Robert Lipke building on next week. But we've run into some issues in regards to scheduling with our consultant. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, there's some things that have transpired where they will not be able to keep that date. And so we are looking at the month of January, specifically around the week of January 16th. We're trying to confirm the dates, the 17th, possibly the 19th as possible dates to hold that public engagement meeting. But we will have more information coming about that. The other thing is we were also going to use Monday and Tuesday of next week to start working on our strategic visioning for the department with staff. We're going to be doing that January 18th. But I just wanted everyone to be aware that we've already started sending out notifications on social media about this change, so everyone's aware of it. But just wanted this group to be aware, and we will keep you up to date on that project and public engagement meeting date as things continue to move forward. The other thing is an update on the Clackamas Park Master Plan. We're currently working with Lango Hampton, getting notes back from the planning department, working on reviewing that information that's been prepared by our consultants, and hopefully we'll continue to move that forward and get final adoption of that Parks Master Plan moving forward. And Steve, this report's for you. We are still working on the sportscraft license agreement. We should have more information to provide, hopefully pretty soon, and just keep your fingers crossed. So,
okay, I'm patient. I'm patient.
all right. That's the conclusion of my update. I will turn it over to John for his update.
Good evening, everyone. Parks Department's been really busy. The weather has been quite variable this season so far. We have a pretty late leaf drop this season, but our staff has been going around to many of the park sites, working on keeping the pathways clear and free from leaves and mulching them where we can. We have been working with the Greater Oregon City Watershed Council at Singer Creek Park. We're working on invasive plant removals, and I met with them earlier this week to discuss our replanting plan, which we will be including native plant materials. One thing that I did want to let everybody know is that on Saturdays until I believe December 16th, they've stated, they're going to be doing cleanups at that park site. And so anyone who wants to get involved can either contact me or plan on being there on Saturday. And I'm sure that they would love some help removing ivy and other invasives from that area so that we can get some native plants planted back in there. Another update that I wanted to give everyone is there's been for those of you who don't know, the large trees that surround Library Park are American elms, and they have been in decline for several years. We've known this, and we've been trying to do everything that we can to prolong the loss of those trees. We received an arborist report from Bartlett Tree Experts, which kind of outlines the necessity for the removal of 5 of those elm trees. The remaining 4 elm trees, we will be coordinating and planning injections in the springtime to try to curtail and slow down the spread of the Dutch elm disease that is the reason why those trees continue to decline. Some of the trees also received really heavy damage during the ice storm. Obviously, we did everything that we could during that time frame to get the dead and damaged off of the trees. And if you recall, shortly thereafter, the large ice storm that we had a heat dome. So really puts those trees that were affected by Dutch elm disease in a hard place, and kind of limits what we're going to be able to do to continue to try to prolong their lifespans. So just wanted to make everyone aware of that. We're working on ordering and getting installed the Veterans Flagpole at Mountain View Cemetery. We're also, Denise has been working very, very hard, and we're trying to finalize our permits to be able to move forward with the restroom replacement. You guys did receive the update about the river access and Cove Trail project. So we're going to, as a requirement of that project, going to be planting 20 new trees. We're also going to be doing other tree work throughout the city. Just as trees begin to drop their leaves, or trees that we see are showing signs of deficiencies throughout our park system, we'll be working on getting permits to remove trees that are dead, dying, or diseased, and replant with new healthy trees so that we can continue to improve our tree canopy. The RV park has gone to online registrations, which is pretty exciting. It's a great new step for us. It hasn't come without a few stumbling blocks, and it's been online now since November 1st. So continuing to learn through that process. Turf installation at Wesley Lynn Park. So if any of you are by Wesley Lynn Park, you might notice that there's some large rolls. We are working with Oregon City Youth Sports to get turf installed on field number 2 at Wesley Lynn Park. So we're really excited about that partnership. I did talk with George Lee, who's their president, just the other day, and they finally got the last, just like with everything, there's shipping problems and delays. So they finally got the last of their materials in and delivered, and they're just going to be waiting for 2 dry days, and hopefully they'll be able to get that installed and be wrapping up that project. And that's beyond just our normal busy work and trying to keep the parks, safe and clean for everybody. That's all I have for this evening.
Thanks, John. Kathy?
I'm coming. All right, there we go. So we got through our Thanksgiving meal. We served about 25 seniors in-house for the day before Thanksgiving. We provide a full turkey meal and the sides. We also had 12 turkeys delivered and out into the community for people that didn't have a meal for their family. So that day we also received extra turkeys besides that from a community partner. People didn't pick up their turkeys, so we got them to a church who was distributing turkeys. So we had it was all turkey all day. So now we are on to Christmas. We are getting prepared for our catered meal, which will be on December 23rd. So what that means is we've got about 100 people coming in for a catered meal, for gifts, for Santa, for live music. Actually, our previous commissioner, Nancy Ide, her husband is coming to play music for our Christmas party, and everyone gets a gift card and a poinsettia. So it's a really nice event for them. We've got a couple of giving trees, and I would hope that PrAC members would be able to possibly announce if you're part of any other groups or community events that we have, sorry, a giving tree. This year it is for our Meals on Wheels clients, and historically our Meals on Wheels drivers would take a significant number of those tags. And since we are so down in volunteers, we're needing some more support with that. So if you could announce wherever you go, or if you know people that are interested in grabbing one of the ornaments, it lists the person and what Meals on Wheels route they're on and the items that we're hoping to receive. Our rental program is incredibly busy right now. We are renting this building on a regular basis, multiple rentals, both in the basement and upstairs. There was a weekend where we had one event in the ballroom, one event in the classroom, and 2 events in the basement in the same weekend. This weekend, we're hosting the Three Rivers Art Guild as part of there's a big event going around downtown Reagan City. The historic homes are going to be open, and the Pioneer Center will be open. And so TRAG comes and has all the local artists and their beautiful items for Christmas gifts. So I hope you'll come out and participate in that. It should be a really fun weekend this weekend. And that's it. That's all I got.
Thanks, Kathy. Melissa?
Yes, so the swimming pool is very busy right now. We started our high school swim season a couple of weeks ago, and we'll be having our first high school swim meet in a couple of weeks. You'll notice I might start coughing. I'm going through a cold right now. And we've been having a lot of staff stuff going on, but we're still maintaining all of our schedules and programs right now, which is great. We have hired 5 new lifeguards and swim lesson instructors in the last month, and we have another lifeguard certification class taking place December 16th through the 18th over winter break. And so far we have 3 new staff members getting certified that weekend and hoping to find a few more as well. Our winter programs for our winter break camps and some other various like fitness classes and stuff will open up on Tuesday, December 6th at 9 a.m. for registration. And we will be offering winter break camps both weeks of winter break. They'll take place Monday through Thursday from 9 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. for ages 5 to 12. And there will be an option to purchase either the session or if people need individual days, we're offering that this year as well. We did open up our swim lesson registration a couple weeks ago for the months of December through March, and that our swim lessons filled within minutes. And most of them have long wait lists already. And so that was something that's suspected just with the demand for swim lessons and the lack of indoor pool space around the communities and surrounding cities that we see. We have a Glow Swim event that is taking place on December 17th. It's a Saturday from 6:30 to 8 p.m. and we still have openings for that for people to register for. And then over winter break, we are going to be offering additional recreation swims from 2 to 4 in the afternoon, and that'll specifically take place from December 19th through December 30th. And then the Ermitinger House will be participating in the event that Kathy was referring to taking place Saturday. It's Heritage Holidays, and a lot of the heritage sites and then the Pioneer Center is going to have a lot of holiday activities going on that day, and the Ermitinger House will be one of them. There's going to be a lot of some crafts and a chance to come make your own Christmas wreath. And it's so we're inviting everyone to come to that. It is donation only that day for that site. And then that is the end of my update.
Thanks, Melissa. Kyle?
Yeah, since the last time we talked, November, we've been spending the majority of our time prepping for winter. John's team has done a great job of collecting all those leaves that hit the ground, but unfortunately, sometimes they land on the roofs and the gutters of the building. And so that's when we have to jump in and take care of those. So been working on that, making sure we're winterizing, de-icing, getting everything ready for beginning of winter, changeover in temperatures. A lot of that over the past month has been the troubleshooting the changeover from cooling to heating in the building systems. We went warm outside for a long time, and so it was an abrupt change, and just finding those trouble spots that are still holding out in some of our newer buildings, getting those systems to work. This for our work is moving our projects kind of indoors. So putting the exterior painting project because it's going to be wet for a while. And so now we're moving indoors.
Thanks, Kyle. Denise?
So for capital projects, Tyrone S. Woods Memorial Park, the dog park is open. In the last couple of days, we've been doing warranty replacement plantings for the trees and shrubs that didn't make the general standard time frame of living. So we are getting those replaced right now. So if you've gone by TSW, you'll see that they've been working out there. And I don't know if they may have another day out there to get that finished up. So we're just waiting to hear from them that they're done. And then with the dog park, I think I mentioned this last meeting, but it's worth mentioning again, is that with the dog park being open, we still have a portion of the contract for them to slice seed the drainage area again in the spring. And that'll give us a little bit more grass growth and root establishment for the spring, knowing that, of course, when we did this project that we had they're basically mitigating some problems. They had accidentally left a drain cap on. And so we had some areas that did not establish as well as we had intended. And so the mitigation is for them to slice seed in some seed in the spring. So just keeping that in the forefront that we will be having a little bit of project maintenance on that area when we get to the springtime. The cemetery restroom, as John mentioned, we are working diligently to try and get these applications processed so that we can get permits. Our planning review application takes about 120 days for that review period. It's type 2, so there has to be public noticing and comment periods. And we're hoping that we can concurrently submit for our building plan review at the same time. And that way we can hopefully just keep moving forward quickly once we get the approval from planning. Sorry, as you can tell, most of the staff is sick. Our Pioneer Center front counter, we've been working with Kyle for some concept sketching, and we're going to get some plan sets done and obtain some estimates for that project to get that updated. And then the cemetery mausoleum roof replacement, we did a little bit more of peel and stick from the TPO to the flashing. And so we are still waiting for the manufacturer's inspection. It was delayed by rain. So we need that manufacturer inspection to gain our warranty certification. So that is our very next and last step through that project to complete that. We did have a very large dead tree at the RV dump station that needed to be removed. We were in the process of getting quotes and had the permits available to us, but waiting for quotes because it's such a large tree. In the meantime, while we were obtaining quotes, a piece of bark had fallen and damaged an RV that was at the dump station. That heightened our time frame to make it a higher hazard tree to remove. And so we were able to get a contractor within the week, mobilize that removal, and had it safely taken down. It's cleaned up. John's team went in and planted a new tree. The only thing that we're waiting for is the contractor to reinstall the sign. But interestingly enough, in that dead tree was a very large hive. So those bees were relocated and able to be saved. So John had some great pictures, and I apologize. I was going to post those in the staff packet, and I forgot. So I do apologize because it's very interesting. So I may be able to get those to you a little bit later. And then for facilities as a capital project follow-up, First Street, the operations and engineering complex, we're still completing the warranty work. So that is taking up quite a bit of staff time. There's a walkthrough tomorrow, and it's obviously warranty work on a building of this size. It's 60,000 square feet. So a building of this size, it is a significant project to stay on top of and to maintain. So kudos to our facilities staff for really digging in. It's no light feat at all to follow up on new buildings. New buildings do tend to take up a lot more facilities time than just maintaining regular buildings. So again, kudos to our staff because we're light on staff and we're heavy on projects. So that is the end of my presentation.
All right, and that concludes our update for tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very, very much. Moving on to member reports. If you have a report you want to give, please just raise your hand and I'll call on you. If not, that's fine. Reports are just that. You're just delivering information. It's not time for a discussion. And we will have time here in a minute for future agenda items. So if you have a report just to share with us, please raise your hand. And I see Brent, your hand is up. So please share with us.
So I just wanted to say that I had the distinct pleasure of literally running into John out at Park Place Park about 3 weeks ago. And it was great to see him out there amongst the parks, taking care of them, taking care of the community. I just want to say kudos to John and all the hard work he does. That's it.
Thank you. Any other reports to get? Emily, please, with your report.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I wanted to say, in case anyone's listening who wants to go to the Greater Oregon City Watershed events, the dates for those are the next 3 Saturdays. So it'd be Saturday the 3rd from 10 to 2, Saturday the 10th from 10 to 2, and Saturday the 17th from 10 to 2. And then I believe there will be a couple more resuming after the holidays in January. That's it.
Quick
Thank
report
you.
from me. Thank you. Quick report from me. As a reminder, this is my last regular meeting. My resignation is final December 31st. So anything we need to do outside of the meetings, of course, I'll still be taken care of. If we do end up scheduling a work session to hear from David, of course, I'll be involved in that. And as of January 1, Tim West will take control of things until, well, maybe until, I guess I should say, then January, you'll have at your meeting, you'll do voting for a new chair and vice chair. And at that meeting, the new person will take charge at that point. So that's all I have for the member reports. Then future agenda items. Any suggestions or requests for future agenda items? Nothing. Okay. Remember, Ken, go ahead. You have one.
Yeah, just real quickly, I think we had talked about a tour at some point with the whole PrAC, and I was just wondering if we can put that on the agenda, and maybe that would kind of help with Emily's concern about, or not concern, but Emily's idea about introductions and things like that. So if we thought, if we could do that on a tour, that would be good. And secondly, I guess I'd like to echo Brent's comment about meeting in person. So.
Thank you.
That's
Yeah,
it.
I think for what it's worth, I think a park tour would be really good, especially with new members of PrAC. You guys can decide if you want to go through the parks in January or March, but that's up to you. So that might change things a bit. Steve, go ahead.
I just wanted to put it, we can call it an agenda item if we want to. This discussion about meeting in person we should have a discussion about that. I don't know the limitations. I guess maybe I don't understand why. We brought this up numerous times. I'm not faulting anybody, but I don't think we're over COVID, but I think we're going to live with COVID. So maybe as a future agenda item, as soon as next month, we can have a discussion about the opportunity to meet in person, because I think that's appropriate, and we should be doing that, given what I see other organizations and groups able to do at this point in time. I think we've become more effective. Thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely not a COVID issue. We've got city commission meetings in person regularly. If they can do it, we can do it. I don't believe it's a scheduling issue, because there's always something. In fact, I look over out my window and I see that City Hall has nothing going on right now. So we certainly could meet places. So I think it is something that needs to be pushed for sure. Any other future agenda items? Emily, I thought, is your hand up or you took it down? You're good?
I'm good, thanks.
Okay, all right. With that, then, our next meeting, regular meeting, is scheduled for January 26th. Kendall, we'll wait to hear from you about meeting with David. We can do an impromptu, or not impromptu, but a last minute scheduling of a work session if we need to. But we can get that moving. Other than that, January 26th, our regular meeting, and our meeting